Hello and welcome back to the Chessgate podcast, where I discuss media in the forms of reviews and discussions. I'm your host, Franklin Thomas Hughes, and today we're finishing off the SSU universe, a universe that kicked off obviously in 2018 with Venom, a movie obviously which I covered a couple of weeks ago, and now obviously it's been wrapped up in December of 2024 with obviously the Craven movie. But because obviously we did a weird order and we did obviously covered Madam Web and Craven before we actually covered the rest of the universe, you know, it's why I'm technically ending on a movie that probably should have been the end of this universe, but it saved us a lot of hassle with the Craven movie. And that obviously, of course, is Venom, The Last Dance. Obviously, I said it recently, obviously the reason I kind of held off on doing, obviously, Venom, The Last Dance straight after Let That Be Carnage was because obviously I was waiting for the Blu-ray, which obviously thankfully arrived. Trying to stop the light from bashing on that screen. There we go, that's better. Obviously that finally arrived, which I was very happy for. And obviously that arrived last week. So obviously I wouldn't, if I was in the position where I'm in now, where I'm actually on holiday for a week, I could have actually got this done and saved Morbius for last. But at the same time, I'm thinking, if I'm ending on any of these movies, I'm probably going to end on, I'm going to get it out away straight away, my favourite of the universe. Because obviously The Last Dance probably is generally my favourite of the SSU universe. Probably my favourite of the Venom trilogy. And if I remember correctly, of superhero movies that came out last year, it's probably my second favourite superhero movie. Is it my second favourite? I'm trying to remember what actually came out last year. I know fucking Deadpool Wolverine is easily my favourite of last year. Let's have a look at the comic book movies that came out last year. 2024, where are you? There you are. Comic book movies. Scrolling through. Yeah, Venom Let It Be Carnage. Venom The Last Dance, yeah, these are my second favourite of last year. So yeah, obviously, as a quick rundown now, obviously Venom Get your words out, Tom, come on. I know it's still early in the morning. Oh, it's like lunchtime technically now. I would say you're hungry, but you're not. You've already eaten. So anyway, okay, Venom The Last Dance, almost did it again there, was released in 2024, October 2024 to be precise, and obviously served as the concluding chapter for now. So I'm doing the air quotation marks because there's a lot of stuff left open. I mean, are they going to end this universe? Are they not? Who knows? Obviously, it serves as the concluding chapter of the Venom trilogy and the concluding, obviously, one of the last two entries in the SSU. The last, of course, being Craven, which obviously, if this universe does end, then that movie definitely was the nail in the coffin. And obviously, for the second sequel in a row, we actually have a new director in charge of this movie, of newcomer Kelly Marcel, who actually wrote the two previous Venom movies and wrote this one. So she's not a stranger to this universe like the two previous directors were. Obviously, she's actually had hands-on experience with this universe, particularly the Venom series, as I say, because she helped write the first one, helped write the second one, and now helped write and direct the third one, obviously alongside Tom Hardy, because obviously he helped write the Epic Carnage and this one. So you can tell, obviously, there's a lot of passion from him within how he has written this concluding chapter. You can tell how much he loves this character and how he wants to see it done right. Which obviously, also makes sense because the fact that he stars in this once again as Venom. The fourth time he's played Venom / obviously Eddie Brock. The third time being, of course, the end credit scene for No Way Home. Obviously, there's a whole new cast in this one. There's pretty much no one back from the previous entries apart from, as I say, Eddie. Obviously, Tom Hardy's the only one back as Eddie. The actress plays Mrs. Chen, and technically there's another character who's involved, which I have written down in my notes later on, which I will get to when I get later on in this review. But obviously, other than that, it's a completely fresh new cast, which, it's one of those things where you're okay with it, but at the same time, you're kind of like, I would have liked to have seen more people return, but this, obviously, the Venom trilogy other than really Dan and obviously Eddie's ex, other than those two characters, there's not really characters that they keep bringing back multiple times. They obviously always introduce new characters each entry. Obviously, last time they brought in obviously Stephen Graham's character, obviously playing Detective Mulligan, the character who does actually come back in this one, which is one of the only other ones that came back from the second one. So obviously it's one of those ones where the mainly establishing obviously Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock and Venom character as the forefront of this universe. Everyone else is not needed consistently in their eyes. Obviously, it's not in. Obviously, because if you look at obviously say the Spider-Man trilogy, the recent one, obviously as well as obviously Tom Holland, you also obviously had Zendaya always coming back. You always had the actress who played Ned coming back, and all like the supporting characters, because obviously Spider-Man isn't a loner. He's got all this cast around him to help. Help with situations, also hinder situations, stuff like that, and just progress the story. Whereas, because obviously how they work Venom and how they worked Eddie being this loner character, it makes sense that he'd be the only one realistically that is constantly recurring, which I say is it's not an issue. It would have been cool to see. Obviously, the two characters that have been here from the start, other than Eddie, also come back. But I'll take Mrs. Chen any day. She's one of the best characters. So obviously what I've jotted down here, obviously I wrote down obviously this obviously follows on from the ending of No Way Home, but it doesn't at the same time. So obviously if you watch No Way Home, here's a spoiler alert for that. Obviously the end credit scene saw Eddie in a bar, obviously kind of trying to establish this new universe he's in, learning about Thanos, learning about obviously the Infinity Stones, learning about the Hulk, and basically everything in the MCU, before eventually, obviously, he gets, faded back into his own universe, going, ooh, like that. And obviously, when he gets back to his own universe, that's where this movie probably should have followed on from. But of course, this movie doesn't. This movie follows on by recreating that scene, changing some stuff here and there, particularly how he gets back to his universe. So instead of just the fade and like the obviously him just slowly disappearing, this universe's version of that event is basically a portal opens behind him and just drags him through it, which I don't, for the fact of obviously how they obviously portray the symbiote hunters in this, which obviously utilize those portals a lot. You can sort of go, okay, it makes sense for this movie to have that, but at the same time, you can argue, well, you set up this ending where obviously you left this piece of symbiote in the MCU universe, but now you're kind of slightly trying to retcon that whole sequence, despite the fact that, technically speaking, yes, that's the MCU universe, but at the same time, you can also argue, well, Sony still had hands on making that movie. Yeah, there's a lot more Marvel, MCU, Kevin Feige fingers in those cookie batter. Trying to think of a better word there to say them, but I couldn't think of it, so I just went with that. Obviously, he helped, obviously making sure it was right for the MCU. So you can obviously argue that maybe that's why they obviously, since this is them by themselves, they want to make it their own thing. But it's just the case of if you wanted to watch all this movie back to back, so obviously you wanted to watch No Way Home or at least the end credit scene, and then actually you could probably argue maybe that it's a way of basically so you don't actually have to sit through No Way Home, which, if you don't want to sit through it, then what the fuck are you... No, it's way better than anything in this universe. But maybe that's why you could argue there's that factor in it. It's the case of, obviously, if you didn't see No Way Home, here, you can watch this sequence here. It's not as if it's a must-watch movie for this movie to play. So we could probably argue that, but at the same time, it's just like, did you really need to retcon it that much? Like, because say you fucking not only retcon the portal, but you've tried to retcon this Venom symbiote being not in the MCU universe, or that symbiote piece is left in Ellie's own universe. Hopefully, Marvel, it's like one of those things where he left it in both universes. So we can only fingers crossed on that one, because that obviously is an easy way for them to introduce Venom into obviously the actual MCU Spider-Man series. But yeah, it's just one of those things where you can understand why they've probably gone their own direction, since, as I say, it's the case of, well, you don't need to watch this other movie to get to this point. But at the same time, you can also argue, just why did you need to? You literally could have had this movie start with him being jumped straight back into his own universe. You don't even need that whole sequence. And then you probably could have reworked some elements within the story so that would work fine, if you get my drift here. So obviously the big overarching villain of this movie, probably one of the biggest threats to Venom, obviously, is Null, the creator of the symbiotes. So far, obviously, villain-wise, we've had Riot in the first movie, we had Carnage in the second, and now obviously technically we've got Null, but he's not as present in this one. He's the idea of Null for this movie is essentially basically like Thanos in the early Marvel stuff. He's there just to, he sends his own weapons from afar to deal with threats to basically allow him to do what he wants to do in terms of invasions. So he's kind of in that sort of role in this movie, because obviously the actual threat he sends is the symbiote hunters, which are basically like giant mantis-like creatures that, when rewatching, I didn't really think of it when I first watched it, but when I rewatched it, I kind of got vibes from Star Wars Episode 2, The Clone Wars. Clone Wars, Attack of the Clones, sorry. I don't know why I said Clone Wars, but Attack of the Clones movie, that weird mantis creature that's in the arena scene. It kind of reminded me of that. Not like, it's not an exact carbon copy, but it gave me little vibes of that. So obviously they're being sent to Earth to hunt for the Codex, which is obviously in Venom / Eddie. Because they need the Codex to release Null from his prison, a prison which obviously he was trapped in by the symbiotes, which is a lot more, obviously, it gives a different perspective to the symbiotes this movie does, which is pretty cool. And what I do like with this movie, obviously being this, obviously Null being the villain, obviously the symbiote hunters being essentially the Chitauri and Loki sort of situation, it means it's not just another symbiote versus symbiote movie, which is pretty cool. It gives you something different. Kind of follows that the Iron Man situation, where the first two Iron Man movies, it was people utilizing, well, just Iron Man type armors. Obviously, Ironmonger being the bulk of one, and then Whiplash obviously having his own one in the second one. And obviously the third one, it gave you obviously the Mandarin, and obviously those villains. So it kind of has that sort of, this series now has that sort of feeling where they went for the first two movies being just copy and paste of the hero, just a different, obviously, type of one. So I would say in this one with the symbiotes, different types of symbiote being the villain, and then obviously the third one being a completely, totally different style of villain, but with still heavy ties to your protagonist. Obviously, say with the Mandarin fake Mandarin, or the faker Mandarin in obviously Iron Man 3, he had ties obviously heavily to Tony from the first movie, which obviously you never got to see really until later on. Whereas this, obviously, with Null technically being the creator of the symbiotes, that's the heavy tie then to Venom. So I do like that they gave us something different for the third movie. I'm just hoping that we do get at least some sort of Null return. Even if it's not in the Venom universe, I'd take it in the MCU universe, Null coming back, and still links to this. Maybe this could be a way of bringing this Eddie into this fight again. Who knows? But I just hope they don't ditch Null now, because of the fact this universe is kind of just failed miserably with everything that's not Venom. I hope that we do get Null back, and it's not just a Darkseid situation where they tease it and then just don't use him and just scrap the character's link to that universe entirely, because Null's, just like Darkseid, is a legitimate threat, and I would like to see him actually get more screen time. But to be fair, he got more screen time than I thought he was going to get. I honestly thought he'd get, if I'm going to be honest, personally, the ending of the movie, that was my thought. He was going to, obviously, that's where he was going to appear. But I mean, we got him at the start, got him a couple of times straight in the middle, like little tiny sequences, and then we got him at the end, and then an end credit scene on him. So I feel like we got more than I actually expected of him in this movie. But I would like to actually see him do a Thanos, actually invade himself, do the battles himself, not just be the case of just sitting there in the throne, which, as I say, is what he does in this movie. So I'd actually like to see him go out and fight Venom, fight symbiotes, fight Spider-Man even. So hopefully we get that as maybe in a Venom 4 or at least, and obviously a Spider-Man appearance, because, you know, it's basically they're giving me blue balls here, because they're teasing me. I'm getting close. Then they rip it away and just don't bring it back. I'm just like, please bring it back, because I need to blam. Obviously, the character I mentioned earlier about, well, it was obviously about Michelle Williams' character and the one that didn't return for this one. The one character that does kind of make an appearance, but I never really noticed the first time. When I was looking at the IMDb cast before I rewatched the second time, I saw the character, obviously the actor's face. I was like, oh, he was in the other ones, which is obviously Dr. Dan. Well, it's a character, obviously how Eddie refers to him as Dr. Dan, but it's just Dan. Obviously his character, or at least the actor, appears as a different character, or is he Dan? And he's just into some shady shit. So that's something that a fourth Venom movie would have to address, because it could be, I was reading online, it could be the case of he's just a placeholder, obviously similar to Andy Serkis' voice in Null. It could just be the case of, for now they've used that one, but obviously they'll actually have someone else step in at a later date to take on that role, which would again be like Thanos with the Avengers movies, because obviously at the end of the first Avengers film, you had Thanos appear, but obviously it was a different actor to who we got then in Guardians, and going forward, obviously since we had Josh Brolin take over down the line. So could it be the case of, in this one, they're placeholders? Honestly, I wouldn't mind Andy Serkis actually sticking around as the voice of Null. That would be pretty cool, because I mean, I didn't even know it was him in this movie until I saw the end credits and was like, wait, it was Andy Serkis? I literally couldn't tell by the voice. It just gave a different voice, and you just can't tell in his voice. You normally can tell in Andy Serkis' voice when it's Andy Serkis. Whenever he brings a different voice to a character, as like Gollum, Caesar, you can always tell to an extent it's him. But for me with this one, I just couldn't tell. So honestly, I would like to see him come back. And honestly, I would say it'd be interesting if they did have it, that mysterious character being Dan, because then it could be some, I say, some cool story development. I see, especially since Eddie knows who Dan is, and he'd see it as, whoa, were you just with her to try and get? Actually, that makes sense, because he was with her before obviously Eddie became Venom. But it could be the case of he got with her, but then after a while, obviously when he knew obviously about Eddie and Venom, it made sense of him sticking around to try and get close to her. But I don't think it is. I think it's just a completely different character. It's just they just utilised him just because they needed someone just to lend a bit of voice work. Which, you know, it doesn't surprise me in the Sony universe that they have the same person appear as two different characters. And one just being a placeholder character, because it just would sum up the universe entirely. So obviously for me as well, this movie probably has the best of the CGI, because it's one that requires the most CGI compared to the other ones, because obviously the other ones, your CGI mainly was the symbiote characters, the two symbiote characters per movie, and obviously a few little digital effects here and there for other things. But this one, obviously, you've not just got your symbiote characters in forms of Eddie, you've got all these other symbiotes that are popping up. You've got obviously symbiote hunters, you've got Null himself, you got the different animals that Venom can turn into. So this one requires a lot of digital effects, and it has to get it right. And for me, it gets it right perfectly. And what sums this up as being the best for me with digital effects is the fact that the other two movies, a lot of the times you see the digital effects in play is during nighttime sequences. Don't get me wrong, this one uses it as well, but there's one whole sequence, which is obviously the one with the animals, with Venom turning to different animals. That's all done in daytime, so you get to see that in the bright daylight. And I always point into the fact that a lot of films will use darkness to cover up CGI in case it's not the greatest. And I said this one blatantly just gives you the CGI in the daylight, and it looks perfectly fine for me. I don't have any issues with it whatsoever, and that just sums up how, for me, this is the best for CGI. I mean, the fucking the symbiote hunters look really well done digitally. They look spot on. I don't see any issues in them whatsoever. And to be fair, they're probably the easiest for digital effects because, unlike as the likes of obviously Venom and the other symbiotes, obviously there's not all these a lot of things that are spraying off their bodies. Obviously, yes, they've got tails and stuff like that, but other than that, that's it. What you see is what they are. All they're really going to do is just eat something. It's just the teeth really that moves the most out of them. So they're probably the easiest of the digital effects because they require less, symbiote stuff coming off them. So they're probably the easiest to get basically correct, and they get it right, which is, sums up the digital effects in this, that they get the easiest digital effect stuff spot on. What else we got? Obviously, Tom Hardy, for me, in this one, obviously, not only delivers the comedic side to the character again, but I feel like there's a lot more sympathetic to this to Eddie in this movie, particularly with the, obviously, hippie family and the dog sequence early on. There's a lot more, obviously, him trying to do it right, him seeing, especially the family he meets, him seeing a loving family thrown into danger. He's seeing them just trying to live their life, and he's thinking, I could have easily had a life like this. I could have had a family. I could have had a pet, and I could have had a completely different life to what I've got here. And it is kind of sad seeing him at this state where he's like, what's my life come to, really? I'm literally on the run from the government, the police, and, aliens. I literally could have ignored all that and had this normal life like this family. And as I do like seeing this sympathetic side to Eddie, adds more layers to his character, and I feel like Tom Hardy nails it perfectly in this movie. He's added more and more to the character of Eddie throughout these three movies. I feel like the same with Venom, really, because even he makes comments of, I'm glad we didn't eat that family. I draw that line at dogfighting and stuff like that. And, like, you're seeing him, obviously, you're probably seeing Eddie's sympathetic side merging into him. It's blending into his mindset of, I'm seeing what you're seeing, and this is, I can go around eating people, I can go around, fighting bad guys and whatnot, but I'm also seeing this other side to the earth. I'm seeing this different side, a side that obviously I've probably yet to see. I've seen like a lot of sides. He's seen a lot of stuff up to this point, but this is probably a side of Earth he's not really seen, this family dynamic, which, as I say, it's a cool new perspective for both characters to have for this movie, and I do really like that. I've already mentioned that. Obviously, the relationship in this one, obviously the last one had obviously them kind of break away at one point before coming back together. This one, obviously, they're stuck together all the way through, and they're both at the point of realizing the codex is in us. If one dies, the codex dies, but neither of us want to die. So you're seeing their relationship come to its final stop, essentially. They're kind of, at this point, very much they are basically an old married couple at this point. There always has been a lot of bickering between them, and it definitely is even more in this one, especially throwing in the whole null stuff. That obviously Venom's now got something to fear. Obviously, you saw him fear Carnage in the last one because he being a red one, but this one, with the whole null being after them, he's got even more to fear now, and he's like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. And then you got Eddie, he's just trying to figure out what the fuck's going on. And so there's still moments where they're both disagreeing with stuff, but then there's a lot more moments of them completely agreeing. And I think the one thing that sums their relationship up in this one for me is the sequence where, obviously, Venom tells Eddie that obviously he can't go full Venom, because if he does, the symbiote hunter will track him down. All he can really do is just the spraying off the body with his head and just tendrils and stuff like that, which it really looks really good. Basically, that stuff does. Obviously, that's all he can do. If he goes full Venom, that's it. They can spot him. And there's obviously a whole sequence where he realizes Eddie's almost good, basically going to die, and he goes full symbiote, and you hear Eddie go, "Wait, he can track us." Well, the hunter can track us, and he's like, "I don't care. You're about to die. Basically, I can't let you die." So it shows you that the point of they care so much about each other that they just can't bear to the other one in pain, whether it be emotional or physical pain. So I do like at this point where their friendship is at its peak, essentially, and that's good character development, really, because I say their friendship slowly developed better and better across the 3 movies, and I'm happy it's at the point now where they're at that level of friendship. Obviously, one thing I pointed out, which I wrote down in my notes as well, which I was like, I've got mixed feelings of. Like, it's a fun sequence at the same time. I was like, was it needed? It was obviously the Mrs. Chen and Venom dance scene. Obviously, it's fucking hilarious watching them two dance to oh, which song was it again? Was it Dirty Dancing? Was it? I can't remember. I've been asleep since last night. It was a song that it's a funny sequence. But it's one of those ones where you can literally cut it from the movie and it just wouldn't make a difference. But see, I'm happy it's there because it gives you more Mrs. Chen. It shows you how much Venom actually really likes Mrs. Chen. Other than Eddie, she's definitely like his favourite human on Earth, and I do like to see that. Plus, at the same time, you can be like, well, the movie subtitle is The Last Dance, which obviously is meant to be more for Eddie and Venom's last time together as their last fight, so it's their last dance. But it's also, it allows you to the Leonardo DiCaprio meme from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, because she literally says the word "one last dance," and you get to go whoop, you get to do that, and it's it's one of those ones where it's a scene where it's like, is it necessary? You could probably find another way of getting, obviously, the symbiote hunter and the obviously military, the government agents to this point. But at the same time, it's one of those ones where one of these movies, especially since after the first one, so I'm talking about the second and third one, there's always one of these moments where it's very over the top moments, and the second one it was the club scene. For this one, it'd be this one. So you can kind of argue that they always have one of these sort of moments. So it's one of those ones where it's mixed feelings basically for me. It's funny at the same time. It's like, but obviously one thing this movie does offer, which is within the final battle, obviously because they tease it building up beforehand when this government agents, where you see these other different symbiotes they have captured. Obviously, during the final battle, we actually get a lot more symbiotes involved. Obviously, you could Google and you'll find out basically pretty much which symbiotes are present. I don't know them off the top of my head. But it's cool seeing all these different symbiotes with different abilities at play. So obviously you got like a symbiote who is more strength. You got a symbiote that's obviously there's 2 of them and they can basically fuse together. You got a symbiote that's got super speed. So it's cool seeing these different types of symbiotes, and also showing that not all symbiotes are villainous like Riot or Carnage, because it gives you this, especially in the final battle, you get this different perspective from them, because of obviously them teaming up to help Eddie fight off the symbiote hunters and try and protect the Codex, because they all fear Null. So instead of this final battle for a third time running being symbiote versus symbiote, it's actually essentially a symbiote army versus a symbiote hunter army. So I like that. It just gives you something different, and as I say, it gives you that different perspective for these symbiotes, which it's just there to show that not all of them are monsters, which is something that you still get to see a lot during this battle, where like the military obviously are fighting the symbiote hunters, but at times they're also attacking the symbiotes, and then the symbiotes are arguing of, we're not the bad guys here, they are, why are you coming after us? You get to see in that situation of, are humans the monsters here and not the symbiotes? Because yes, the symbiotes look monstrous, but they're doing good. It's these human characters that are literally attacking anything in sight, where realistically they should be teaming up with these symbiotes to fight basically the true monsters, which are the symbiote hunters. Because if they can stop these hunters, they can stop them from helping Null get freed. So I say there's a lot of new perspectives added to your view on symbiotes and obviously everything alien within this final battle. So we also get Detective Mulligan getting his symbiote side, which is something that was teased in the last movie. I don't think it's the actual symbiote from the comics. From what I was reading online, basically people are saying it's more like this symbiote, not his actual is it toxin or something like that. His comic symbiote. Basically, people are saying it's not that one. It's more like this one, which you can argue, be like, it's annoying that he hasn't got the more comic accurate symbiote, but at the same time, you can go, at least they gave him the symbiote, which they could, they could have not, they could have had him not even appear in this movie. So at least we got him as a symbiote. So you can't really moan too much, really, and. It says the final battle overall is just really well done. I do like everything within this final battle. The stakes are at its highest. Let's say you got humans and symbiotes fighting these symbiote hunters. You throw in this family as well that Eddie is befriended, and he's now got more stakes than just his own life. He's got their life to save. So there's a lot going on in this final battle. It's probably the most ever in one of these final battles for this. Well, not just this trilogy, but this whole universe overall. There's so much going on. There's so much entertainment value in this final battle. I would say there's so much carnage going on, but that character's not involved in this. And I'm getting attacked by Typhlosion again. Stay up there, you big bastard. You've stayed quiet this entire video, so stop attacking me now. So as I say, it's just, for me, entertainment value. This final battle is the peak of this universe, which doesn't say much, then does it, if it's taken 3 Venom movies to get the best battle in this franchise, especially considering, say, you've had 6 movies. Well, this was movie 5 out of 6, and it took up to 5 before you even got, a battle that blew me away. Of like, this is actually really well done. This is not just it's 2 symbiotes going to town on each other. It's like symbiotes and these other types of creatures that literally can eat symbiotes, and well, not just symbiotes, they eat anything, and there's fucking they're like lawnmowers essentially. They fucking, the back of their head just blood and symbiote goo just squirts out, and that for me is just fucking amazing. And obviously one thing I noted, obviously the end credit, the first one of this trilogy not to have an Eminem song as the final song, because the first one was obviously the song Venom. Second one was Last One Standing, which obviously was Eminem and a couple of other singers and rappers. Whereas this one, it's not. Obviously, the song is literally called The Last Dance, which, it fits this movie perfectly, and I actually really like the song. It does then mean that there's a missed opportunity of Let There Be Carnage, because that's the only one that's end credit song doesn't have the title of the movie in its song. Because I say the first one, Eminem's song Venom for the movie Venom. This one, Let There Be Carnage, The Last Dance, which is the subtitle, is also the title of the song that's playing. So this is obviously they went with The Last One Standing instead, which, to be fair, made sense because it's the last one standing. Who's the last one standing? Venom or Carnage? So it makes sense for the movie. But it's just a shame that I didn't try and find a way to make a new song with the word "Let There Be Carnage" within the song, because then it would have, all 3 movies would have had an end credit song that featured the movie's title within it. So missed opportunity, but I still like the song, and I like, for me, the what the song's playing over, because what you're seeing is different animals being possessed by Venom's symbiote. So you get like elephant, you see the frog, I think there's a giraffe as well. You're basically seeing all these different animals possessed by a symbiote, and visually, like, looks really stunning. And so with that song on the top of it, adds to it as well. And then obviously then you got your big end credit scene, which is there to tease that this universe isn't over, but if Kraven the Hunter's had its way, this universe is probably over, which I don't mind the universe ending, but I would like to see a Venom 4. Or if not, this version of Venom at least appear somewhere else to allow the null story to be complete, because there is a lot of stuff that this movie leaves open, and I would like them to actually finish it. So we'll just have to wait and see on that one. But I think overall, it's a good, safe ending for the Venom trilogy. That just proves again, which I think I said last time, that Venom is the only movies that were actually required really for this universe. You could literally just done a Venom trilogy and ignored everything else, because Venom's clearly the bright spark of this SSU universe. So I'll give Venom: The Last Dance same score I gave it on first glance, which was a 9 out of 10. I did really enjoy this one. Even on second viewing, I really enjoyed it. Yes, it was a safe ending, but it was still pretty entertaining. It has a lot more going for it for me than the two previous ones. Runtime wise, it actually fits in just in between them. It's just shy of the first movie's runtime. There's a lot more in this than there was like the Carnage. I think that helps this one stand out more, because it allows it to have a bit more going on. But if we don't get anything with that null, obviously the null stuff after this, I might lower my score, because as I say, it's one of those ones where I think I had this argument with when me and Alex did the Dragon Prince recently. Obviously, we both gave it a score, and we were like, if we get another entry after this, this score is fine. It stays like this. But if we don't, then we probably would drop the score down one. And I feel like that's the same with me for this. If we don't get any more to with null or Venom, because as I say, there's the little teacher at the end for how this goes, going obviously for the fact that this story could continue. If we don't get anything from that, I probably would drop my score. But if we do get something, my score will remain. Because I say, it's got everything for me. The comedy's right. The seriousness is right in it. There's a lot of sadness in it. Eddie and Venom are probably at their best in this movie. I like that it's not just another symbiote versus symbiote movie. It's got some really good battles within it. The final battle, I'll say, is probably my favourite of this series. Especially the ending for me. It obviously takes the ending really from the first Venom movie, the sad side of that ending. In the obviously battle wise. And actually ups the ante even more in this one and goes out with a bang, essentially. And for me, that just adds even more to that final battle. So, let's say, it's just, if we don't get null or anything continuing on from where they clearly left us hanging, my score will drop. But for now, 9 out of 10 is where I'm sticking with this. So, obviously, we're going to wrap out our rankings of this universe now. So, just a reminder beforehand, so far we had Venom, That Be Carnage, Morbius, Madam Web, and Craven. That was my, obviously, 5. We're now about to add number 6 to that list. And with that 9, very easily slots Venom: The Last Dance straight into first. So we've got Venom: The Last Dance in number 1 position. We've got Venom, the 2018 version, in number 2. Let Be Carnage sits number 3. Morbius sits in number 4, Madam Web sits 5th, and Craven the Hunter sits at number 6th. So that is the official ranking for me personally for this universe. So with that ranking in place, here's my question. What is your ordering of this universe? If you've seen every single entry in this SSU universe, which order do you put them in? If you've seen The Last Dance specifically, what were your thoughts on the movie? Did you like it? Didn't you like it? And would you like to see them at least continue the Venom side of this universe? As I say, you can ignore the rest of this universe if you want. Would you like to see them at least continue with this bad boy going forward? Or at least would you like to see them bring Null back within the Spider-Man movies? So, yeah, obviously that is it. You can check out the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Audible, etc., etc., or you can check the video out on YouTube. Obviously, next week, I've already recorded next week's one. I'm ahead of myself for that one because I did it straight after I finished the game. Obviously, I'll be covering Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag and its DLC Freedom Cry, because between now and next Friday, I'm actually wrapping up the Freedom Cry DLC. I believe it wraps out on Wednesday. So obviously I thought, fuck it, I'm gonna actually talk about these now. I'll do Rogue as a solo one. So obviously next week I've already got it ready to go, which is the Black Flag and Freedom Cry discussion. And then I've spoken to Connor about getting him on for the week after to talk about Monster Hunter. But again, I think I said that in next week's one. 50-50. We'll wait and see on that. If not, I'll either do it by myself or I'll put something else in its place. But obviously, until then, I hope you enjoyed not just Venom: The Last Dance review, but all the other ones I've done in this universe. You can check out all of them at the links in the description below. And I will see you hopefully next week for the Assassin's Creed podcast. If not, I'll see you whenever I see you next. So, goodbye.
If you like what you've seen, don't be afraid to throw us a little like and subscribe. That's always very appreciated over here. And, well, I'll see you on the next video.